What research will I do when I'm looking to invest in a player on Football Index for the long term? Now, when you're investing in a player for the long term, so you can have your money tied up in this player for a little while, I always find that it's key to invest in what you understand. And what do I mean by that? If you're, for example, an expert on a Serie A, then that could give you an edge that no one else has got. And I don't just mean knowing how good certain players are, I mean knowing what temperament a player has, how a player gets on with their manager, their relationship with the media. Are they loyal to the club, or are they likely to seek a move to another club? This type of information can give you an edge. Once we've found our edge and we're willing to invest in this player now for the long term, what I like to start with is the fundamentals. Really dig deep into why this player will be a good long-term investment. Now, market knowledge aside, which I'll go into a bit more later, you can use your football knowledge and think, do I actually read about this player a lot online or in the media? Does this player score a lot of goals? Are they in spits and spurts, or am I likely to see dips along the way? Is this player going to a new team and it's going to fit his style better? Has he got a new manager who wants to build a team around him? You know, all this type of information, which really you can get from your football knowledge, helps when trying to figure out whether there'll be a good investment. Yeah. So once we've got our edge and we've broken down our fundamentals going by our football knowledge, let's then take it over to the football index market and see if we can add it up and see if there's still a good investment. By add it up, I mean, are they a type of player who fits the performance buzz structure? So high possession, goal threat. Are their skills going to complement performance buzz scoring? Equally, like I said before, when you said, are you always reading about the player? Is the player always being reported in certain newspapers which qualify for Football Index media buzz? All these type of things you need to break down, and then if you can put that market knowledge to the football knowledge, and it's still a good investment, then that's a great start. Just one thing to be mindful of when looking at historical performance on Football Index. So dividend returns, price movement, whatever you're looking at. Footballers, you know, at the end of the day, they're human beings. They lose form, they fall out with managers, they might play in a new system which doesn't suit them. There might be a new star in the league who's hogging the media, so their time is shortened. You know, all these things can happen. So using historical data is useful, but don't count on it when making your investments. Always look forward and what can happen in the future. So now you're looking to the future, let's really map out a picture that will lead to your players' price increasing, a domino effect if you like. So you want to say, well, if this happens, then this will happen, and then this will happen, and then this will happen. And then eventually my player's price will be this much, and I will return this much dividends. So let me give you a couple of examples of what I mean by domino effect. So last summer, I bought Mesut Ozil. Now, I bought Mesut Ozil because I expected a few things to happen one after the other. The first thing I expected to happen was that he wouldn't sign a contract before the transfer window ended. And that happened. The next thing I thought was that Arsenal would struggle and he would get frustrated. And then that happened. And then I thought Sanchez, who obviously wanted to leave. Ozil, to be fair, hadn't said nothing and he ended up staying, as we know. But Sanchez, we knew wanted to leave. So I knew that Sanchez was likely to leave. In the end, that happened in January. Because of his relationship with Jose Mourinho, Jose Mourinho said he was one of the best number 10s he's ever worked with. He also done the foreword for his book. I knew that the papers, I speculated that the papers would make up some sort of story that Ozil will link up back with Mourinho. Again, that happened. So all the dominoes in the end fell into place for me. His price rose over £1.50 and I returned a good chunk of dividends as well. Now, in the end, he ended up staying, but I managed to get out because I had a plan in place with exits in place to do that. Another one, Gareth Bale, was another one I bought last summer. Now, I knew that with the emergence of Asensio, Isco was starting to come through as well, and I had a very good start to the season. And Bale was very injury prone. I knew that it would only be a matter of time before he ended up back in the Premier League. So my domino effect was that Bale maybe couldn't get in the team as much. He would be injured a lot. The rumours would be starting, which means his price would increase. And at the end of the season, he actually did say that he's looking to play more. The index exploded and so did his price. I was actually 1 minute too late to take full advantage of that. I exited when he scored the winner in the Champions League final. And we don't know what's happening with Bale now, but the point was the domino effect that led to that situation was something that I made up in my mind. I mapped out that picture of what would happen with his price increase. And when you make a long-term investment, you need to speculate more than when you're day trading. You know, when you're day trading, the market tells you what's going to happen. When you're making a long-term investment, you need to speculate. So with them two examples there, I speculated on what a domino effect would lead to a price increase and dividends. Now, if I was going to make a story again for a player for next season who I was going to invest in, it would be someone with probably a goal threat. Now, let's take Aubameyang for Arsenal, for example. He come in January, signed in January, the end of January, and he scored, I think it was 10 goals leading up to the summer. Now, he's always scored at least 20 when given a full season, and he did actually score 10 the 6 months prior with Dortmund in the Bundesliga. So he scored 20 again last season, really. So for me, if I was looking at investment, I could map out a picture of his price increase and what would happen, and could he have a Salah type impact on the index. Now, what I would say is that he'd come in, he'd start strongly, the new manager would love him. Because there's a new manager and he's scoring goals, the media start reporting on him more. Performance buzz wise, scoring braces, scoring hat-tricks possibly, which would lead to performance buzz. All these things I could map out, and as a domino effect, that in the end, he potentially could have a Salah type impact on Football Index. Now, this is not a player tip. Any player you buy into, you need to do your own research. But I'm just trying to give you an example where if I was investing in a player for the season or for half a season, then I would map out this kind of picture. I would do all the fundamentals. I'm an Arsenal fan, you know, and I know the Premier League back to front like most people do. So there is, you know, sort of an edge. And then I would look at the fundamentals. I knew, like I said to you, Aubameyang scores at least 20 per season. Potentially the media will report on him because they do like reporting on Arsenal, mostly bad, but sometimes good. Arsenal also got a new manager, so the spotlight is on them. So fundamentally, it makes sense. You know, Aubameyang does score braces, he does score hat-tricks, and we've seen on the index with performance buzz, braces and hat-tricks, even if the player isn't great for scoring, still can win performance buzz. So again, the fundamentals and then the index performance buzz and media buzz scoring do match up. And then as I map out a picture, then I can come to the conclusion that Aubameyang is worth an investment. Now, I'm talking about long-term investments. When I build a portfolio for players that I like to hold, it usually is for at least half a season, but I do, in the beginning, plan to hold for a full season. Now, you can have a long-term investment a month at the lower end or a whole season at the higher end. It doesn't matter. But one thing I will say is that don't be afraid to exit the position if it's just not working. You know, for example, with my Aubameyang example, if he starts the season, first 10 games, doesn't score one goal, gets dropped for Lacazette, you know, then it's not working. You know, it's not something that is bringing me the returns that I expected in my domino effect. You know, now he could then go on and actually blitz the league like I thought. So it's up to you to put in your plans that have in place a plan of exit on every, say, if he isn't performing for 10 games, you can look at it. You can maybe give him 5 more games more, you know, for example, or if he isn't performing for 10 games, you can exit your position, you know, or you could stay committed to holding the player for 6 months for the whole season. It's totally what is in your plan. Just be prepared for price dips. You know, if the player does go into a red, then it shouldn't matter to your mindset because you're holding him for the long term, you know, and if your fundamental research, you know, what he's good at, what you can expect, and then you put that to your market research with him as well, then you should really expect that sometimes there's going to be dips and everything like that. So if you're investing in a player long term, I hope I've given you some ideas. For me, really mapping out a picture of how I want the investment to go and then building, you know, what can go right and what can go wrong around that really helps me. So to finish, find your edge, you know, find what you understand, invest in what works for you, invest in what you know. Then look at the fundamentals, so delve into your football knowledge. You know, what is this player good at? You know, is he wrote about a lot? Who's he played for? What's the team's objectives? etc., etc., and then try and put that together with the market knowledge. Does their style of play score well? Performance buzz. You know, do they get spoke about in papers that matter for the media buzz? You know, and are they an attractive buy for a lot of mainstream punters? Because remember, you're going to get new traders come on and they're going to buy their favourite player. So all this comes into play when you're talking about price rise and dividends. And then once you've got that, map out a picture of why the player will increase in price and the potential domino effect. So you're breaking down that map. You're giving a domino effect of this will happen, this will happen, this will happen, and this will happen. You know, but it's not all good. So once you've done for why the player increase, do a plan for what could go wrong and what would make you exit as well. And if you do all that, then your long-term investment will usually go without much of a bumpy ride, to be honest, from my experience. Right, if you've got any questions for this last video, then just leave a comment below. I'm going to be starting with a £500 bank, as you see here, and going through the entire 2018-2019 season. If you want to come along on the journey with me to see how much money I can make at the end, then subscribe, and I'll see you at the next video.